Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being a part of this very interesting session on listening skills. Empirical evidence shows that people with extraordinary abilities, even with their full attention, are only able to listen to about 27% of what is being said and retain only about 10%. I'm not sure if these statistics still hold, but this is the kind of receptors that we have that absorb information. This is the kind of absorption power humankind has. However, this can be improved. So with improved listening skills, automatically results in improved attentiveness and improved comprehension of information being thrown at us. On this very important subject, I am very glad that we have one of our best trainers delivering this session, Mr. Mubinul Haq. I will share his information, his profile with you in a bit. However, before that, a bit of housekeeping, since I understand that there may be some individuals who are attending a webinar hosted by us for the first time. Some basic housekeeping techniques. Number one, all the participants throughout the duration of the webinar will be muted, which means your microphones will not work. But you should be able to see the presenter, the screen, the video, and you should be able to hear the presenter and the presentation that the presenter will be running. If you have any questions, you will be able to type them in the questions dialog box. We have a dedicated moderator sitting here who is noting down all the questions, who's keeping a track of all the questions. And during the question and answer break, these questions will be shared with the presenter. And the presenter, one by one, will answer all the questions. The moderator will also make sure that the name of the individual who's put up the question is also shared. So you get to know that your question is being answered. Number two, this is a CPD webinar. 2 units of CPD will be available. ACCA will be issuing digital CPD certificates, which will be used as an evidence of having attended this webinar. So wait for a few days during which the certificates of attendance will be shared with all the participants. Of course, all the participants who would have attended more than half an hour, and that's because less than half an hour does not constitute any CPD unit. So half a CPD unit is the minimum denomination. So please remember that. Now about Mr. Mubinul Haq. Mubinul Haq is the director at Talent Development Organization, Talent Development Company, based in Pakistan. He's an avid speaker on motivational skills, personal development skills, and a number of topics. Previously, Mr. Mubin has delivered a session on personal leadership for all of you. The recording of that session is available on our Vimeo channel as well as on GoToWebinar. So those who would like to refer back to this particular topic, who want to see the recording, you're more than welcome to go to our Vimeo channel and listen to the recording and the video available there. So for this session, may I welcome Mr. Mubinul Haq to come forward and start the session with you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chief. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
All good afternoon.
And good afternoon. Good evening to my dear participants of this session. As introduced, I'm a professor by profession and a consultant and a trainer. I have provided trainings to many organizations in my during 16 years of my career as a trainer, consultant, and a teacher. Listening is one of the most difficult topics, believe me. It's easier said than done. Let me ask you one question from the very beginning. When I say listening skill, what do you understand from this word? when we say it's a skill, what does that mean? What is the difference between hearing and listening? Why listening is a skill, hearing is not? Think on it. Why hearing is not a skill, while listening is a skill? The answer is very simple. Whenever we say something is a skill, that means it needs to be learned, it can be learned, it can be improved, like driving skill, like swimming, like riding a horse. But there are so many skills. And that means you are not, nobody's born with the skill. Everybody learns that skill. So listening is a skill. That's the good news. Those of you who think they are not good listener, they can learn, they can improve. And those who are good at listening, they can enhance and improve their skills to a new level. And there are many levels of listening. We will talk only on certain aspects. And mind it, those who don't talk much, they may not be good listener. They only don't talk. So in this session on listening, we will be using a model called HURIER, as you can see in the first slide, HURIER, a HURIER approach to listening. This word stands for certain skills. H means something else and EU means something, and we will see what does it mean. So in this 2-hour session, we will go through the important aspects of this model. This is a detailed presentation, but we will be focusing on certain aspects of this model, the entire model. Let's start with a little poem on listening. Before we can lead, we must serve. Before we can serve, we must prepare. Before we can prepare, we must learn. Before we can learn, we must listen. And before we can listen, what should come here? What should be the last line? Before we can listen, what should be the line? Can we have an input? Sir, can we have an input? Before we can listen, can you type what should come here? Before we can listen, we must do what?
All right, we are getting answers. Zishan Hafiz is saying we must hear.
Okay.
Ahmad Mirza is saying we must see.
Okay.
Mariam Arshid is saying talk.
Okay.
Situja is saying we must prepare to listen. Mariam is saying we must talk again. Understand, we must see, we must hear. Concentration is required before listening. Observe, speak, must speak, plan.
Thank you, all of you. But imagine, if you are talking, how can you listen? In order to start listening, yes, you need to prepare, you need to plan, you need to all this thing. But the most important thing is you must be silent. If you are talking, you will not be listening. Even if you are talking to your own self, you will not be listening. You need to silence your thoughts, your emotions, before you begin listening. Right? So, before we can lead, we must serve. Before we can serve, we must prepare. Before we can prepare, we must learn. Before we can learn, we must listen. And before we listen, we must be silent. So, starting from here, let's be a good listener. I want you to read this one very carefully. One does not listen with just his ears. He listens with his eyes and with his sense of touch. He listens by becoming aware of the feeling and emotions that arise within himself. Because of his contact with others, he listens to the words of others, but he also listens to the messages that are buried in the word. He listens to the voice, the demeanor, the vocabulary, and the gestures of other, to the context, the verbal messages, the linguistic pattern, and the bodily movements. He listens to the sounds and to the silences. This is the universe of listening. So imagine what you are listening to. We do not only listen to the words, we are even listening to the silence, to the body language, to the emotions, to our own feelings. So listening is not only confined to hearing the words, it's observing, it's understanding, it's a dynamic world. So welcome to this world of listening. This presentation covers 4 main goals, as you can see. It is going to highlight the importance of listening and to highlight that it exists all around us at every time, all the time. It will highlight the principles of effective listening, what we should do to become a better listener. It will also highlight what are the various listening skills that you can practice. And you can choose various strategies of listening. Here I would like you to identify input. What do you think are the qualities of a good listener? I need input from you. Start typing. What are the qualities of good listener?
Maybe repeat the question. To answer.
Can you identify the qualities of a good listener? No, you can't identify any quality of a good listener? That's interesting.
Maybe people sit typing.
No?
Qualities of a good listener.
Are they listening? Hello, hello, anybody out there? If you are listening, say yes. I want to check whether there are people around. Say yes, I'm listening. Because I can't see you. I only know if you are listening. Can you hear me? Are there people? Can they hear me?
Yes. Yes.
How would we know?
Just a minute. We'll just set this up and we'll know exactly.
So you see, in listening, you have to make sure that the participants are listening. They are not asleep. So I'll beg your pardon, just 1 minute. We are just checking. Am I on? Yeah?
Yes. We've got answers. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So now we are back, and now I've been assured that you are listening.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I give you the answer?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Mohammed Rafiq, attentive, having interest in the topic.
Good.
Ahmed Mirza, does not interrupt.
Excellent.
Number 3, Salman, he says, he pays attention.
Okay, very good.
Muhammad Ali Lawati is saying, good listener asks if he is not able to understand the speaker.
Okay.
Other answers are well focused, remain silent while listening, interest and focused,
very nice.
Mentally present, patient, he will be willing, eye contact, mentally present, patience.
Very good.
Professional, competent, energetic.
Very good. Let me just highlight some that I have written down. Excellent. Patient, eye contact. Look attentive, ask questions. Now, hold on here. Each of this quality requires certain behavior that you need to display. For example, how can one be patient? What skills do we need? We need to look attentive. How do we look attentive? Should we act so that I appear attentive? These are the skills of listening. Saying it does not mean that you know it, but you should know how to develop this behavior of looking attentive, how to be patient, how to be empathetic, how to show interest, what is the supportive body language. So we will be discussing all of that. Similarly, there are some qualities of poor listeners. As you can see, they interrupt. They change subject. Yes, but I think this other thing, moving from here to there. They have a negative body language. They're doing like this. So all these things, they demonstrate that you are not a good listener. So compare this thing, qualities of a poor listener with qualities of a good listener. You need to develop skills, the abilities in yourself to demonstrate this behavior of positive listening. And this is what we are going to talk about right now. We are not talking only about listening, we are talking about effective listening. Listening effectively, or also called as active listening. Both are the same thing. When we listen to a people, we help build relationship, and that enhances our trust in them. And remember, active listening or effective listening is very demanding. It requires lots of energy. It requires your input. It is very powerful. And since it's very demanding, it is tiring. People get tired. You need breaks while listening. It requires concentration, attention, and mental processing. So, listening is a tiring thing. We normally listen to our friends without analyzing, but when we are talking about listening, it means analysis of what is being said. So this is a different form. When you are listening in a classroom or in a meeting, you are attentive and you are all the time processing. But when we are talking to our friends, we may not be processing. We may not be that involved. So that's not that tiring. We are talking about listening in meetings, in classrooms, and where you are required to process the information on a continuous basis. So let's start with the first module, the importance of listening. Your performance is an outcome of the qualities, the listening ability. If you do not understand well, listen well, your performance will be good. A good manager, a good leader, a good friend, a good boss is the one who has good ears, who can listen. And that's a comparative advantage that you can have. Listening is more important than talking. Remember, we have one mouth, 2 ears, 2 eyes. That means talking is 1, but listening is 4. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1:4 ratio. Talk 1, listen 4. Talk 1, listen 4. Most of the communication problems, misinterpretations come in life because we are not a good listener. Only if we can improve our listening skills, we can reduce the problems in our life significantly. Misinterpretations and misconceptions and all these misunderstandings can be removed, not 100% remember, but our quality of life can be improved. We can never remove the 100% of the misunderstandings. That's impossible. That's a fool's paradise. And remember, before you say something, you must understand what the other person is saying. So you must listen before you say anything. That's the most important. And interesting, effective communication starts from listening, not speaking. We love to talk. We don't love to listen. But communication starts with listening. That's the most important. Why we will see very soon. Look at this graph. What does it say? It says 80% of the personal responsibility is with the listener. In communication, listener carries 80% of the responsibility of communication. That's the importance of listening. Unfortunately, in our education system, schools, colleges, and universities, we are taught how to read, how to write, how to speak. But seldom we have been taught how to listen. Our teachers require us to listen. Our bosses require us to listen. But nobody has taught us how to listen. And we take it on ourselves that we know how to listen because we have been doing this all our life. Listening needs to be learned. Just like we have learned how to read, how to write, how to talk. Listening needs to be learned. So here's your chance today to understand some important aspects of listening. Listening tries to accomplish 2 types of tasks, 2 different things. One is task, understanding the task related things, and other side is relationship related. Listening can help us to accomplish our tasks. While in terms of relationship, it helps us connect to other people. It helps us creating a bond, the emotional bond between me and them. When we listen, we give a message to other person, you are important. We give respect to other person. So listening helps not only in improving our tasks, but also in relationships. So that's the importance. There are 2 aspects. Listening for the task and listening for the relationship. They go together hand in hand, but each has a different component. Now, as you can see, the task function, when we are listening for the task, it helps in better decision making. It helps in better understanding of the task. Well, whereas in relationship, it helps to understand the emotional aspect of our speaker. It helps understand the interest of that person, why that person, he or she is talking, what is the interest. It helps in gathering more information from the person, and as a consequence, it helps us in improving the trust between me and the person that we are just talking to. If you want to enhance your listening skills, the first principle, let's start with the first principle. Listening is an attitude. You have to develop that attitude in yourself to become a good listener. Now, how do we develop that attitude? Let's start with a small story. There was a king who asked 3 questions to his people, the 3 questions that he asked: who is the most important person? What is the most important task? What is the most important time? His counselors said, they are so easy question. The most important person is you. The most important time is governing. And the most important task is governing, and the most important time is the time of your kingship. King replied, nonsense, stop buttering and give me right answer, or I will throw you out of my court. The counselors were very perplexed what to do. They tried to find answers, but they could not. One day, king went for hunting in the jungle. As he was hunting, he saw an old man sitting on in the jungle, and the king said, this man appears to be wise. Let's ask these questions to him. So king approached that person, old person, and asked these 3 questions. The old man looked at him and said, okay, sit aside and I'll give you answer in few minutes. What happened? Luckily, a man on a horse came running towards them, and he was injured, and when he reached these 2 people, he fell down and became unconscious. King and the old man rushed to the person, attended him, put some water in his mouth and dressed his injuries, wounds. And then the old man turned to the king and said, so now you got the answers of 3 questions. King said, no, I don't understand. The old man said, the most important person is the person you are with now. Most important task is the task that you are doing now. And the most important time is now. What this story has to do with listening skills? Remember, I said you have to develop listening attitude. You must have gone through an experience whereby you are watching your favorite program or reading your favorite book or newspaper, and a small, your kid, maybe your son, your brother, your daughter comes to you and shakes you up, hello, hello, and you angrily said, well, go away, I'm watching, I'm reading, I'm doing this, I'm busy. How many times that happened? You know why that happened? Because at that very moment, that child was not the most important person in the world for you. You did not have the listening attitude. Now imagine you say to yourself, that small kid is the most important person in the world. How would you behave now? Imagine you are sitting in front of the president of your country. Imagine you are sitting in front of the president of your company. And the president of your company or your country is saying something to you. How would you listen? Isn't he the most important person at that moment? And listening to him is the most important task. Remember, unless or until you don't develop this attitude of listening, that the person that I'm listening to is the most important person, you will never be able to listen. So before you go into listening conversation, always say this thing to yourself: the person I'm going to listen to is the most important person at this moment. Only then you will listen. So there are many skills, as you said. They are focusing, the ability to focus, ability to ask questions, remembering and evaluating. There are so many. But let's focus on the HURIER model of listening. HURIER. H stands for hearing, U for understanding, R for remembering, I for interpreting, E for evaluating, and R for responding. So there are these 7 skills of listening: hearing, understanding, remembering, interpreting, evaluating, and responding. So one by one we will go through the skills required in this one. Let's start with hearing. And this is the model. As you can see, the top portion is about all those factors that impact your listening, that quality of your listening, that enhance or reduce the quality of it. The organizational role, attitudes, previous experiences, values, and all these things. And the lower half of the model discusses the various elements of this model: hearing, understanding, interpreting, evaluating, remembering, and responding. So let's start with hearing. Hearing in this model represents your ability to pay attention. And remember, attention is a selective process. We can be attentive to only 1 or 2 stimuli at one moment. It's a very selective process. And we have to choose to be attentive. When we are driving on the road, we are not attentive to many factors. But when we choose to be attentive to any of the factors, be it a car, be it a person, be it an advertisement, we pay attention. So attention is the beginning of listening. If you don't pay attention, listening will never start. Now let's see, how do we give attention? We can give attention through our physical, through mental, and through emotional aspects. Now, when we say at giving attention physically, that means going through my body, my eye, and my breathing. Now, whenever you want to give attention, start with your body first. Move your body a little bit towards that person. And stand or sit in a way that you face that person. Never do like this. No. You will not be listening. In order to give respect and importance, remember the attitude. In order to give respect and importance, you must be sitting or standing face to face if you want to listen. So first thing, your body. Your body should represent to the other that you are listening, you are attentive. And if you are sitting, bend little bit forward, little bit, to show that you are giving respect to that person, giving attention to that person. You are focusing on that person. Eyes. Eyes connect you two. If you are talking to somebody, but your eyes are like this, not looking at his eyes, on his eyes, your connection will be lost. As a listener, you must be aware of the eye movement of your person that you are talking to. For example, while you are talking or while other person is talking, observe the movement of the eye. If the eyes are moving away from your face again and again, the person is not interested, there's something wrong, is want to talk or want to go away. He's thinking of something else. If eye contact is not there, listening will not happen. It's the first principle. You must establish eye contact. Then look at your breathing. When we become impatient, remember we said the bad qualities of poor listener. When we become impatient, our breathing changes. Instead of being very controlled, it becomes fast. Control your breathing. Be very focused on your breathing. Then mental attentions. When we are analyzing, we ask questions. We give statements. If you are not asking any question, your mind will wander off. You may not raise the question to the speaker, but you have to analyze all the time. And emotional. You must not let emotion take control of your process of communication. Emotions will take you away, it will distract you, it will stop the process of listening. So you must learn the art of removing this emotional barrier between you and the other speaker. And you as a listener must not react to emotional words. And we will see to that, how can we control that? In debates, with our friends, in colleagues, in our meeting, many times we become emotional and we forget that we are not listening, we start talking. As soon as we start talking, remember, we stop listening, we stop hearing, we start talking. So in order to listen, we must be silent. So attention giving is the first step through your body, through your mind, and through your emotions. When we give attention, we move a little bit forward, we show an open gestures, we stand in front or sit in front with our face and eye in contact. That's the first step of listening. Then the second step starts. Once we start listening, the second step which will come, that understanding. As Stephen Covey said, first understand, then be understood. So you must learn how to understand before you try and say, I have not been understood. So first is, you must try to understand the person who is in front of you. Understanding is a skill, it's an art that needs to be practiced. Now, understanding means we are interpreting. The person is saying certain words, there are certain images coming in front of us. And each word may mean different for me. there are certain meanings associated with those words. So I have to understand what is the meaning of that word. So I should not react rather than understand. So language is very important. The meaning of the sentence, of the words that are being said, we must try to understand what the person is trying to say. What is the meaning of this word? What is the meaning of this sentence? So understanding requires that we ask for elaboration, we wait for the response, we wait for the clarification, rather than jumping to what the person is saying, what to the words. It could be very emotional words, it could be something else. And remember, we can only improve our understanding. There is no such thing as 100% understanding. It's a rare thing. Sometimes it can happen, not every time. Be careful of the language, because each language represents the cultural aspects and the learning aspect. So don't react to the language, rather than be patient with the language and understand that the person is expressing his thought in the best possible way that is known to him. For example, if somebody starts talking to you in angry voice and starts abusing you, you don't need to react on those abuse or those shouts. Just understand that's the way the person needs to communicate. And the person is communicating his or her anger. You need to understand why that person is doing the way, because it does not reflect on you, but the abusive language reflects on that person. So understanding is first step. So understanding requires questions. Questions are the most important part of any communication, especially listening. Most important part. Why? They help us in clarifying our understanding. Questions help us to probe, that means to ask person to elaborate on an area. Questions help us to control the direction of communication. Where do we want to go? Questions can also help us highlight what we are understanding, and is there any confusion between me and the listener. So there are many types of questions. There are closed questions, like yes or no questions. There are open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are those questions that require an elaborate answer to the question. For example, if I say, what is the time? It's a closed-ended question. But if I say, how would you spend your time? It's an open-ended question. Closed-ended questions narrow down or creates an agreement, move the conversation towards a narrow issue. Whereas open-ended questions open up the discussion, allows the other person to describe. Leading questions are those questions in which you are putting answer in the other's mouth. You are expecting and you are forcing the other person to say something to lead. That question leads the answer. Wasn't that a very bad story? So you are leading that answer. At the heart of questioning are the probes, small questions that you ask during discussion. Can you explain more? Okay, for example, you can say, What do you think happened there? What is the meaning of this word? What were you feeling at that time? So the questions that you create during the process of discussion are the probes. So a listener asks question, and that's the power that the listener has. He controls the communication. He directs the thought pattern. Listener does not talk, but only talks to ask questions. Those who ask questions, they are in power. Those who answer, they are the followers. Those who ask questions, they control. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to be a follower or a controller. Questions. Learn to ask questions. We have discussed importance of listening and understanding so far. Do you have any question? I would like to hear some questions from you.
Ahmed Mirza is saying no, thank you.
No questions? Are you listening? Ahmed?
Server Ahmed is asking, what is listening with ignoring?
Listening with ignoring. You are not listening. You are acting as you are listening, but you are not listening, and that's bad. That's very bad. Because you are giving the message to the person you are not important, or the issue is not important to me. Never do that. If you don't want to listen, say, right now, it's not the right time to listen. We'll talk it next time. But don't do that. You are going to hurt your relationships.
Mohammed is asking where to use probe type of questions.
During discussions, when you want the other person to elaborate. Very good question.
Faiza Habib is asking how to grab the attention of counterparty when communicating with someone.
And what do you mean by grab attention? You should be giving attention. You are a listener. Why do you want to grab attention of other? The other person is demanding attention from you. So don't grab, give. Listening is giving, not getting. You give attention. You give respect. And in return, you get respect.
Umarja is saying he's listening, but he has no questions. Everything is fine.
Excellent, Umarja. But I would request create questions, because questions have the power to keep you focused. If you do not have questions, your mind will wander off. But the power of question, as soon as you raise a question, your mind becomes focused. Right? So let's move forward. There's another technique of understanding, creating understanding is paraphrasing. We will use this technique one more time, but let's understand what is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is a technique to tell the person who is talking that I have understood your talk, what you are saying. So during the discussion, you summarize, you paraphrase, not summarize, you paraphrase, you repeat what you have heard or you just said. You paraphrase. And you said, okay, so far what I have is this. My understanding is this. So you repeat what you have understood in your own words. Summarize is at the end of the communication. When everything finishes, you summarize. But during discussion, a person has said a long sentence or has raised 2-3 points. So at that moment, you stop that person and you repeat what you have said. This creates an understanding, helps you understand and connect you with the other person so that the other person also understands that you are understanding that person and clears the misconception that may arise during that discussion. So paraphrasing is a technique where you repeat in your own words, but you must say before, this is what I have understood. If I am right, please correct me if I am wrong. And then you repeat. And you should do paraphrasing every 5-10 minutes if it's a long communication. It's necessary to paraphrase. It will keep you focused. It will keep you linked. So practice paraphrasing a lot. Another way to improve your understanding, we will also use it in memorizing, is to take notes. How many of you are taking notes right now? If you don't take notes, how would you understand what you have learned?
Well, they are saying that they are taking notes. Ahmed Mirza is saying I am taking notes. Sana Riaz is saying we are taking notes. Nishan is saying I am not taking notes.
There are advantages and disadvantages of taking notes.
And Gulrez Bhatti is saying, I hope you will share the presentation. So he thinks there is no need to take notes.
But presentation does not cover what I am saying. There are advantages of taking notes and there are disadvantages of taking notes. Let's talk about
Amarul Hassan is saying, how can I focus if I take notes?
Great, Amar. That's the biggest disadvantage. If you are not used to taking notes, you only listen. That's good. But then you must develop a system of record keeping. Because as we will see in the memory, we forget very soon. So we need to develop a mechanism. Note taking is an art, it's a mechanism that we need to learn. You should not note down every word. Rather, you should note down certain headings, certain points that you can link afterward. But you must note down important points, not every word. So advantages of note taking, you can recall afterwards, it keeps you focused, it helps you understand, it helps you organize. And remember, if you cannot organize your thoughts, you can never understand. So when you are in a meeting, in an interview, in a classroom, you must note the organizing, how it's moving. For example, right now you can highlight HURIER model, and under each heading, age, hearing, you can highlight the most important points. You don't have to write each and every point. That's a listing method. So there are many methods. I encourage you to develop a method. It's very, very important. And if you are in a job, remember, minutes of a meeting are the most important part of the meeting. They are legal documents. If you are not taking minutes, you are in trouble. So yes, there's an issue of how should I focus, but that is what we need to learn. It's a mechanism, it's a skill, right? So far, we have discussed attention and understanding. Because now we are moving into memory, so let's recall what we have discussed. We have discussed attention. And how do we give attention? It's through our physical, mental, emotional. With physical, we mean through our body, we must move forward, we must be face to face. That's attention. Our eyes should be in connection with the other person's eyes. Right? And understanding is asking questions, taking notes, paraphrasing. We must demonstrate to the person that I am understanding. And if I do not paraphrase, I lose the ability or the chance to make that connection with the other person. Asking questions gives the surety to the person that you are listening and you are trying to understand. This activity that I just did, the recalling, is a necessary step in listening. What's the use of listening if you are ignoring? That means you are not remembering. Another person said, what was I saying? I was saying, how can I know? I was not listening. Imagine. You are talking to a person about your personal concerns, and another person is not giving any importance to you. How would you feel? Memorizing is an important step in listening. Your memory will affect your performance in the workplace as you acquire and apply new knowledge and skills on the job. Many a times your boss, your teachers will tell you something verbally and they will expect you to remember. And most of the time these learnings are for lifelong. If a person is coming to you with his or her important concerns, if you do not remember, you will be in trouble in terms of your relationship. So memory is an important part of listening. So there, let's understand this model of memory. There is a stimuli, there is an information that coming in. It comes down to your immediate memory. Immediate memory it goes to short-term memory and then it goes to long-term memory. Now your immediate memory is just like the memory of the computer, which is removed as soon as computer is shut down. It does not store. It's your working memory. Immediate memory has little capacity. If you do not move that immediate memory into short-term memory, it will be deleted. So you must understand how your immediate memory is working. With every few seconds, your brain sends the immediate memory, it flushes down the immediate memory to short-term memory. And from the short-term memory, that it is moved into long-term memory, but not whole of it. Some part of it will be moved into long-term memory. So you must decide what do you want to store in your long-term and short-term memory. It's a decision that you have to take. Otherwise, brain will automatically delete things from your working memory or immediate memory. So it's a conscious choice what you want to remember, what you don't want to remember. So how do we do that? Let's look at that. Remember, learning can only occur when information moves from your working memory, your immediate memory, into your short-term memory. If it does not move into your short-term memory, learning cannot occur. So whatever we have said in the last 1 hour, see how much of it has been stored in short-term memory. What we recall. So there are 3 strategies that we will be discussing right after break. When we come back, we will see what have we remembered so far. So it will be a 10 minutes break. It's 4 o'clock. We will be back at 10 past 4. And you will start with 3 strategies to enhance your memory. Thank you. Let's take Okay, welcome back after the break. So before going to the break, we were talking about memorizing, how to remember. And we said there are three strategies: repetition, chunking, and logical patterns. Let's understand these three techniques of memorizing. Repetition. When you repeat something, it becomes stored in your short-term memory. For example, when you hear somebody's name, you met that person first time, you should repeat the name of that person at least once while in discussion. Thank you, Mr. Asif. Thank you, Mr. Jandua. Nice meeting you, Mr. Jandua. So you should repeat. Repetition is a technique that enhances the quality of what is being stored in your mind. So there are three strategies. Repeat with me. There are three strategies. What? Repetition, chunking, and patterns. So these three strategies: repetition, chunking, and patterns. We will be using them. Chunking. Second strategy is chunking. Chunking is basically when you group things in a chunk. You remember. For example, if you want to remember a number, let's say what I have written as 352262129. It's a number. So you can chunk it into 2 or 3 numbers: 35, 22, 61, 29, or 352, 261, like that. When you chunk, the brain has an ability to take it as a group, as a pattern. Brain remembers that group more easily than independent 3, 5, 2, 2, 6, 1, 2, 9. For example, if you call inquiry number and the computer says the number is this, so how should you remember? Make it a chunk: 35, 22, 63, like that. Chunks. The brain remembers chunks of information. Rather than picking 1 or 2 information, pick the chunks. Then the logical pattern, a very, very interesting method and very powerful method. Can you identify there is SMTWTFS? If you want to remember what's the logical pattern, can you identify the logical pattern? Sir, can they identify SMTWTFS? What's the logical pattern? Can you make it fun? And what about the number that is given 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, 18, 29? What's the logical pattern? 1, 3, 4, 7, 11. You are all ACCA smart accountants. Yes. Yes.
Amit Vijay is saying these are days.
Yes. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So once you know the logical pattern, you remember. And what about the numbers 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, 18, 29? Logical pattern. Once you remember, understand, it will be in your memory. 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, 18.
Delphine is saying odd number, but Delphine, it has 4.
But it has a 4 in it. It has 18 in it.
Yeah.
Try to create logical pattern. Brain remembers what is logical. If it's a pattern, brain remembers pattern. Let me give you a hint.
They're not even prime numbers.
1 plus 3 is
4.
So what is the pattern here? We are adding the second number with the first number. 1 plus 3, 4. 4 plus 3, 7. 7 plus 4. So if you can recall, if I give you 1 and 3, you can recall all the numbers. Logical patterns. Whenever you are listening to a lecture or a meeting, try to establish the logical patterns of the thought. What comes first, what comes afterwards. So once you have understand, and this is what how will you take note, the logical pattern. This is coming after this. Now the challenge is from short-term memory to long-term memory. That's the challenge in listening. What you should store in your long-term memory, and long-term memory means for years to come. Short-term memory could be for day to day, 1 month, but for long-term, it's long-term. And as you can see, to put anything in a long-term memory, it's a deliberate process. It's a deliberate process. We need to associate. Remember, you must understand the most important aspect of brain. Brain works in association. If you associate two things, brain will remember it. That's one of the most important principle of memorizing, associated. So when we deliberate, do the process, we are deliberating, processing the information that is coming in, it will be stored if we associate it with her. For example, the information regarding this, my name is associated with the presentation on a listening skill. So if you deliberately associate that Mr. Mobeen gave the presentation on listening, so now listening and my name are associated. And if you repeat it, that listening presentation was given by Mr. Mobeen, and you store it in your long-term memory, you will remember it. Association. Let's understand association. I'll give you one more very interesting. Well, long-term memory has an interesting aspect. It's unlimited. It's not 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte like your computer's hard disk. It's unlimited. You can store everything into it. The question is not storage, but accessibility. So many times we store, but we cannot access. And the key to access is that association. As soon as that association comes, oh yes, I remember now. Association. So when you are listening, try to associate something. It will be stored. And storing it is a choice. It's an option that you have to execute. It's an option. It's a choice. Remember, some things you will not store, some things you will store. And what you are writing, remember, you are associating, and most of it will be stored in your long-term memory. There's something, I'm giving you an example of association. I've written 1 to 10 things: 1 pen, 2 swan, 3 bird, 4 wheel, 5 hook, 6 holes, 7 flag, 8 fat, 9 body, 10 spool. I'm giving you just 1 minute to memorize it, and after that I will remove it from the screen and I will ask you to reproduce. Use the process of association to memorize: 1 pen, 2 swan, 3 bird, 4 wheel, 5 hook, 6 hole, 7 flag, add 8 fat, 9 body, 10 spool. Use the process of association. And then we will recall. Okay, let's see. Can you recall? Saf, see if they can recall. 1 to 10. What is 1? What is 2? What is 3? What is 4? 1 to 10.
Zishan Hafiz is saying 1 pen. 2. Sana Riaz is saying 10 swan wheel.
What is 3?
Wheel.
No. Wheel is associated with 4 wheels.
Sayyid Muhammad is saying bird.
Yes. 5.
Pen, swan, bird.
Yes.
Wheel.
5. Look at the shape of 5. Is it like a hook?
Emil Mirza is saying pen, swan, Bench, on, bird, wheel, hook, hole, fat, school.
What is 7? How, with which thing did you associate 7?
Flag.
Flag.
Gulrez is saying flag.
Yes. What about 8? 8 was associated with
Muhammad is saying fat.
fat. 8 is fat. 9.
Body.
Yeah, when we were a child, we used to draw body like the circle with a line and this and that. This is 9. And then
School.
So when we associate, can you now recall just like that? 1 is, 2 is, 3 is. So now you remember. And believe me, for the next 10 years, you will not forget it. Because it's associated with your brain. You can just repeat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 is, 2 is, 3. 3 is bird. That's
wheel,
what how we make bird. 4 wheel. 5 shape of the file is like. Imagine we will use another technique of imagination with 5. 5 is like a hook.
Hook.
6 has a hole in it.
Hole.
7
Flag.
flag. 8
Fat.
9 body. 10 class 10th metric. See, when we associate something, if you are wanting to remember a name of a person, associate his name with some characteristic, his eyes, his ears, his something. And once you associate, that is for permanent. That's a permanent line in your brain. That's long term. And the most important, the more information regarding that subject you have stored in your brain, the easier it is to recall. It's easier to recall. So, for example, you are ACCA, the more you study about accounting, all things, it's easier to recall. It's for there because brain records it in the long-term memory. So, the more questions that you ask, more you will recall. Because more information is coming in, more is being stored, so you will recall. That's the importance of questioning. So, if you are not asking any question, you are not recalling it. It's fading away from your working memory. It's not even moving to short-term memory. If even it's short-term memory, it's not being moved into permanent memory, long-term memory, because you're not asking any question. And as soon as your eyes move away from the face, your process from short-term to long-term stops. So, listening is a deliberate process. Learning is a deliberate process. You can associate with the context. When did you meet that person? Where did you meet them? How did you meet that person? When did you say that? How did you say that? What was happening at that time? When you associate things, you remember. So try to associate. Another thing is category. You put things in the category. For example, when you go to shopping in a hypermart, you look at categories. Dishwashers, detergents. All the brands are coming in your mind now. Soaps, shampoos. As soon as the category appears, the brand appears in your mind. So whatever you want to memorize, give it a category. This is a category of this is in the category of that. And why I'm saying this is conscious. Consciously allocate category to your mind. Once you consciously allocate, you will associate that thing with that category. So if you cannot allocate that thing, you will not remember. Another technique is mediation. Very common technique. What does ACCA stands for?
ACCA recording session.
ACCA is a technique of mediation. We have converted a long sentence into small. ACCA. So when we create certain sentences like, how do you remember the spelling of together? To get her. Right? So these are the techniques where you create a sentence, a situation, or an acronym called mnemonics. You convert the big into small. You remember that. BBC. So mediation is a technique of creating a meaningful unit of a long information. Another very powerful technique is imagination. Now, when I say remember 5, it's a hook. Now imagine a red color sock, a large red color sock is hanging on a hook. And 5 is like a hook, and a large red color sock is hanging on that hook. When you imagine, you will never forget. Imagination or visualization helps our brain to retain whatever we exaggerate, whatever we visualize, brain records it. Visualize object out of proportion. If you want to really give importance to something, for example, your parents or your wife has said something, given you a list to bring something from the market. If you want to memorize, for example, the wife has said, bring a bread, bring butter, bring milk. So what you need to do is to imagine a big size of a bread, toast falling from the sky. Imagine you are swimming in the river of milk. Visualize. Make it out of proportion. And why I say that? While you are driving on the road, thousands and thousands of cars and screens and advertisement banners go past, but you remember only few that are extraordinary, out of proportion. You remember. That is what brains do. Selective attention. Remember, we only give attention, and we have to record it. So make it. Do an effort to memorize it. And as we know, listening involves all the senses. So if you can involve your senses into that, you will never forget. These are the factors that will hinder your memory. For example, you have low confidence, and in a certain situation you are taking medication. You are not interested. You are tired. You are angry. All these situations will hinder your emotional your memory. So be very careful of the factors that influence your memory changes. So what we have done of the model HURIER: H is hearing, means attention. U is understanding, means asking questions, taking notes, paraphrasing. R is for remembering, and the strategies for remembering: repetition, chunking, logical pattern. Right? And we have seen the importance of visualization and association. When we associate, we remember. So H, U, R, we have covered. At this point, do you have any question? H, U, R. Do you have any question? You know why I'm asking you to do think? Because it is putting all that you have learned into your long-term memory.
Mohammed is asking how many days of information remains in short-term memory.
It depends upon his interest level, but not long. Short-term memory retains very little amount of what exact dates I don't remember right now. Remember, when you take a break in listening, you empty your short-term memory and push things into your long-term memory when you are asking and consciously focusing. So you are putting things and you are giving yourself brain a break. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving you a break. Right? Let's move forward. Interpretation. I. HURI. Interpretation. Whenever we are listening, we are interpreting. The other person is saying something. And interpretation is the relationship aspect. We are always interpreting how that person is looking, how that person is moving, what are the words that you're using, interpreting all the time. And this becomes the basis of empathetic listening. At the core of the listening is the empathetic listening. That means responding to emotionally meanings of the person. For example, a person has said to you, we like to eat fast food all the time. You listen to that statement and you started interpreting. Ooh, he's a show-off. He must be from abroad. Nobody in his family cooks. Are they spendthrift? They spend all their time outside eating. Who are they? What is their lifestyle? So you all the time you are interpreting every statement that we say you interpret. So that is where the difficulty of life begins. The meaning of one sentence and the understanding of your understanding is totally different. Interpretation. So interpreting is a risky business, but it is essential for understanding. So how do you improve your interpretation? By asking questions. You do not assume. This must be the meaning of that. This is what he said or she said. This must be the meaning. No. Don't assume. Ask question. Give space. And when we interpret, remember, we are not making conclusions. Don't try to make conclusions unless or until you clarify. So, interpretation requires 3 skills: observation, empathy, and EQ. Let's talk about observation. Each face that you are seeing on the screen has different expression, the face expression. When we are interpreting the body language, our body language is saying something and different, and I'll say, we'll just see to it. For example, of a person, what's the difference between the first picture and the last picture? They both are boys are smiling. There are different types of smile. What does it mean? What does it? A person is not looking at your face, rather avoiding your face, your eyes. What does that mean? We interpret the body language, the facial expressions. So there are different types of facial expressions that we should be very, very carefully studying the other person. For example, there are lines appearing on the forehead. What does that mean? The horns, the lips, they just turned little bit. What does that mean? The person took a deep sigh, moved back. All these signals are used in listening as for interpretation. So in interpreting, the skill is listening with empathy. Listening with empathy. Now, empathy is your ability to understand the point from the other person's perspective. So that means going into the shoes of the other person. You take a position and you say, okay, I see it from your point of view. You give room to other person. You don't say, okay, this is my point of view. No, not your point of view. You say, okay, you say the sentence, okay, I see it from your perspective, from your point of view. I would like to go into your shoes. Interpretation, empathy. The empathetic listener does not impose his own opinions or values. When listening empathetically, you do not evaluate. You do not evaluate. Remember, in empathy, we are not evaluating. We are promoting honest, engaged communication throughout total other-centered involvement in the encounter. We do not evaluate, we listen. We try to understand. As a person is saying this color is purple, no, it's not purple, it's blue. Rather you ask, okay, let me know why are you saying it's purple? So empathy is going into others' shoes, it's listening to a point from others' perspective. If a person is very abusive and very angry, an empathetic listener will say, may I know why are you angry? Or if I were in your shoes, I would have been angry too. So you go and stand with that person rather than opposite. You don't oppose. You be a partner of that person. That's empathy. An empathetic listener does not direct conversation. Rather, it asks questions, probes to open. It is only possible if you are patient. And it's only possible if you say that person is important and must have a genuine reason to talk in that way. He has an opinion, and that opinion is different, but there could be a logic, there could be a reason that you cannot see, or you want to see that logic, that reason from his point. So this empathy creates a communication channel. The person talks, you give empathy, he receives empathy, gives you feedback, and the empathy continues and the communication channel continues. So how do you show empathetic behavior? You show through eye contact, you show through your body, you relaxed, open body. If your body becomes tense, that means you are evaluating and you are reacting. No. A person is very angry, instead of you becoming stressed, an empathetic person shows open body. Accept, invite. An empathetic person shows respect for other person and shows the body movement in a way that relaxes and calms the opposite person. So when we are interpreting, remember we are interpreting the body language, the non-verbal cues. And as they have said, I don't know whether you know of that, 93% of the communication lies in tones and body language. Only 7% is in word. 93% of the message is hidden in tones and body language. Words are only 7% important. So we need to observe the body language and the tones. For example, the defensive body language. If a person is standing or sitting with a crossed arm, with fist closed, like this, the person is not listening to you. He's closed. If a person is doing like this, it's angry. If you're talking, another person is doing like this, no. And while you're talking, the person or you are saying that like this, no. That means you're not listening, and the person is not listening, closed. He wants to say, he or she wants to say something. If a person's eyes are moving away from your face, wait and ask the question. If a person takes a breath, Ask question. Why? If a person is playing with the pen like this, or looks at the watch like this, ask question. Don't judge. While interpreting, we must understand the emotional aspect of other person. Why is he feeling that way? Help him understand the emotions that the person is feeling. Help him manage his emotions. That's what listeners do. They manage the emotions. Anger is removed and calmness prevails. That's emotional. You must identify the person is angry, person is frustrated, person is happy, person is delighted, person is sad. You must identify and then you deploy the appropriate strategy. So there are 4 aspects of emotional intelligence, and it's an intelligence, by the way, emotional. I hope you know. So the 4th thing, the self-awareness. Do you know how do you feel when you feel in that certain emotion? When you feel angry, when you feel happy, what are your feelings? What are your body conditions? Can you manage your anger? Are you socially aware of the emotions? That's called empathy. And can you use and direct your emotions and other emotions for the betterment towards positive? If a person is angry, what can you positive about it? How can you convert that anger or frustration into positive? That's relationship management. So a listener enhances the quality of relationship when he or she improves the emotional experience of the other person. We have 10 more minutes, and we are just at the end of our presentation. H was hearing, U is for understanding, remembering, interpreting, and now evaluation. We have to evaluate. We have to come to a judgment. As a listener, we must understand whether the person who's talking is saying truth or false. What is the meaning? What is the message the other person wants to give? Is other person giving you a friendly request or a threat? Is the person lying or not? So listening means you must be able to evaluate the statements. You must be able to differentiate between facts and lies. You must be able to identify the biases that are there. You must be able to identify what are the conclusions. Are the conclusions drawn right, wrong, or wrong? They are based on logics or illogical arguments. So you must be able to differentiate between opinions and facts. Is it a fact or is it an opinion? Your service is very bad. It's a fact or an opinion. Right? So a listener job is to bring things to a conclusion in a way that the speaker also understand what has happened. You are not going to deny, or you are not going to put that person away, but in a way that other person respects you, whether you judge that person that whatever has been said is not right or wrong, whatever. But your job is to make other person comfortable. So these are the methods of evaluation, and remember, evaluation requires questioning again. Without questioning, you can never go to evaluation unless or until you have probed thoroughly, and you have paraphrased, and you have highlighted the facts, difference between facts and opinion. Your job is to help other persons see the process. For example, distinguish among facts, opinion, and inferences. What is a fact? A person comes to you and say, I've been suffering from this for so many years, for so many months, so many weeks. What's the fact? Maybe it's only one day. I've been waiting here for 1 hour. Maybe the person was just waiting for 10 minutes. But since we all like to exaggerate our feelings because we all want to be important, we exaggerate. So your job is to differentiate between a fact, opinion, and inference. What is an opinion? Opinion is something that you have made out of a fact. You have heard a fact, and based on that fact, you have made an opinion. So opinions are challengeable. There are many opinions. Your opinion versus my opinion. I have the right to opinion, you have the right to opinion. And opinions are debated. And inferences are conclusions. Opinions are not conclusions. Inferences are conclusions. And if our opinions are changed, our inferences are also changed. So we need to understand what is the logic of this inference, why I am making this inference. For example, if I've seen 2 black ducks, so I can infer all ducks are black. So inferences are my general conclusions. For example, a customer may come and say your service is pathetic, and all your customers are dissatisfied. That's an inference. Some may be dissatisfied, but not all. So generalization. So when we are listening, we are trying to understand what is a fact, what is an opinion, and what's an inference. We try to differentiate, and that's only possible if we are asking questions, we are paraphrasing, we are memorizing, we are interactive. We are in the interactive discussion. So evaluation, you must repeat and clearly state what is your evaluation. That's very, very important, evaluation. That's how we do paraphrasing and evaluation. Now, when we complete our discussion, we repeat, this is what I have listened and this is what is my evaluation. You clearly lay it down. It's transparent. Remember, listening is a transparent activity. And then you respond. The most important and the most difficult part of listening. This topic alone requires at least 1 day, 1 whole day of how to respond. The most difficult part of listening, responding. There are majorly 2 types. 3 types, missed the 3rd type: assertive, supportive, and defensive. The 3rd type is defensive. Let me write to over here. Defensive. Responding is at the end of the process. What do you say? How do you say? What do you do? Respond. For example, a person comes in with lots of anger. If you respond with anger, you will both be in a fight. But if you respond in a different way, you might avoid that fight. So at the end of each conversation, I am supposed to respond. If I don't respond, that will not be a communication. Whatever, you are talking to your brother, your wife, your parents, your boss, your friends, you are required to respond. So response is the most important part of listening. It's the last part. So the first is assertive response. Remember, there are 3 communication strategies in the world. Especially when we are in the situation of conflict. So there are 3 strategies in the situation of conflict. I can be aggressive, I can be passive, or I can be assertive. Aggressive is the worst strategy. That's a no-no. Passive, sometimes okay, but not a good strategy. Assertive is the best strategy. When you are assertive, you tell the other person that I respect you and I demand respect from you. When you talk in an assertive manner, you show the person you are not afraid. When you talk in passive, you show you are afraid. When you are aggressive, you show that though you are not afraid, but you are afraid. An assertive person is a straightforward, open person. The person expresses his feelings, his ideas equally. So assertive is not aggressive, remember, and assertive is not passive. Assertive has all the good qualities of aggressiveness and all the good qualities of passiveness, yet it has no negative quality of aggressive or passive. So assertive response is how you communicate your feelings to other person. You do not shout like aggressive. Your voice remain calm, right? Your accent is not, gesture is not like this, rather than like this. You do not point. Your body posture is not like this or like this. That passive. Normal. So it's an art that you need to learn how to be assertive. These are the certain assertiveness skills, as you can see. How do you, when you receive criticism, how do you respond? When you give criticism, how do you respond? How do you express your feelings? How do you take a stand on something that is not important, or not popular? So they are warm behaviors, and then there are cold behaviors of listening. Direct eye contact, touching, smiling, nods, eyes open, forward lean, positive. These are all warm behaviors. If you look at the cold, stare, yawning, looking away, nervous, fidgeting, all these are cold behaviors. So assertive gives you a warm behavior. Defensive individuals are impatient. They take over the conversation. No, this is not what I'm saying. They look at their hands and their body. No. At that moment, they have stopped listening. If you are a good listener, stop and say, okay, now you talk. And then you listen. Because they are defensive. And whenever we are defensive, and whenever we start with the no, our brain shut down. Take that person out of that position. Make that person comfortable with your supportive language. In a supportive mode, you ask that person, okay, please elaborate. And you go into questioning mode, into paraphrasing mode, into note-taking mode, into evaluative mode. You do not reflect or react to the emotive words and all that thing. Remember? So supportive, you go into support. You don't go into assertive. You become supportive, listening, taking everything in, processing it, helping the other person realize, calming that person down, reducing the emotional energy level. So if your statement has made somebody defensive, the person will stop listening. So it's your turn to now listen and make that person comfortable. Well, in the supportive language, you use I. For example, I feel frustrated. I understand. You do not use you language. You is an aggressive language. Rather than we, you can, if you are assertive, you can use we. How can we improve this situation? In a supportive and assertive style, you look for a solution rather than pointing fingers. You don't blame. It's because of you. No. Again, using the I language. How can I solve this? How can we solve this problem? I see there's a problem. How can we solve it? It's problem solving versus blaming. And you show empathy rather than indifference. You take a stand with that person. Okay, I'm here with you. I want to understand. I want to help you. You don't say, I don't care. It's your problem. No. When you are listening, you have to stand with that person. And you have to listen and you have to help that person and think it's your own problem. The person is the most important person for you. How can you help? With the sincere helping intention. Maybe you cannot say anything or do anything, but you can listen, and listening removes 50% of the problems right at that point. So paraphrase, whenever you are showing empathy, you paraphrase. So we have covered this. If you look at HURIER model, let's just recap HURIER model. Where is that? Yeah. So hearing, understanding, remembering, interpreting, evaluating, and responding. These are the steps. And each step comes after another. If you are not hearing, you will not understand. If you are not understanding, you will not remember. If you not remember, you will not be able to interpret. And if you are not interpreting, you will not be evaluating. So you will not be responding. So each step you must go through sequentially when you are listening. It starts with giving importance. It starts by giving attention. It starts by asking questions. It starts by saying this person is something important to tell me. And you must choose your response. Remember, response is a choice, it's a strategy. It should not come automatically. A person has abused you and automatically you abuse back. No. Then what's the use of training? Behaviors need to be changed. You must create a calm in yourself. You must create a distance. You must understand the person is angry or frustrated, and it's your job to help that person. These steps, 7 steps, needs to be practiced. These are behaviors. They will not come overnight. You need to practice. How would you respond? How would you do that? How would you evaluate? What questions should you ask? How should you probe? How should you make yourself patient? Observe your body language, your own feelings. What is making you impatient? Why were you impatient? What thoughts were coming in? Stop there. Create a barrier between you and those thoughts. Becoming more emotional intelligent. You don't need to be aggressive. You have a choice to be assertive. You have a choice to be supportive. Aggression is not the answer, it's the worst communication style. Avoid it. It's a no-no. Better go into passive. Best supportive. But aggressive never solves any problem, it creates more. If you have to be aggressive, try to be assertive rather than aggressive. These 7 steps, they need to be practiced over and over again consciously again and again. It's a skill like driving, like swimming, like riding. They need to be practiced if you want to really improve your listening skill. And remember, in today's world, in the corporate world, listening is the most important skill that we all need. So if you have any questions now, we will take. Otherwise, thank you for being with me. So I'm waiting for your questions, or you can ask questions. Sir?
Mohammed is saying sometimes I face problem in listening when I'm listening to some part of world English speakers, as they might be fast or pronounce the words in different way.
Okay.
How to become good listener when dealing with these speakers?
Good. Remember, it's the first hearing. That's an issue of hearing, or I would say understanding, either. Now, we can, because every word creates an image in our mind. our vocabulary. If we do not understand, for example, if I'm saying something in Chinese, Qinghacha, Qingzhou, are you understanding what I'm saying? Those who are Chinese, they know, but you can't because don't have the vocabulary. I'm saying, would please drink tea, please go. Vocabulary is very important. You must tune your ears to those words, those tones. Listen more and more. Enhance your vocabulary. We cannot understand what we cannot, what's not in our vocabulary. I'm using words, rendezvous. May not be in your vocabulary, so you won't be able to understand what's the rendezvous. You won't be able to understand. So you need to enhance your vocabulary and you must listen to those tones. If they are available, those tones are available on YouTube. Go and listen. Your ears will get tuned to that, and it will no problem for you there. So listening requires vocabulary. Good question. Any other question?
Yes. Usman Afzal is asking how to respond to a boss who isn't a good listener.
You become a good listener and guide that person, help that person. Remember, the one who listens is powerful. The one who's talking is not. The one who is talking is giving away the power. If you become a good listener, your boss will rely upon you and will give you the power, will give you the respect. And remember, if he is angry, you should be cool. Help him vent his anger. Help him see the picture. Help him find the solution. Be the punching bag. Doesn't matter. Be a good listener. You will be more powerful than your boss.
Mohammad Qasur Alam is asking how can I improve my body language in aspects of communication?
Learn the meaning of various body postures. For example, the way I am standing, my arms are open. Right? If I do like that, what does that mean? If I put my hands in my pocket, what does that mean? Learn and be very observant of your and others' body language, and then copy the good body language. If you do not learn various body languages, you will not be able to create those. Body language is a conscious thing. If you are unconscious, you will never be able to control it. You should be able to control. See, my arms are open, that's conscious. You will not see me putting my arms in my pockets because I'm conscious. Be conscious. Only then you will learn. Learning is conscious. Subconscious learning you cannot control. So we are talking about conscious learning. So be very conscious of your body language. Observe and read the meaning of body language. You know this word, this thing, this is negative. This means I am the supreme knower. I am the best. You don't know anything. If I do that, I'm giving you a message. You don't know. I know. So be very careful of the body language.
Tala Said is saying that he can very well understand and listen and understand the English conversation, but face difficulty in speaking English. What should he do?
Speak. If you live in Pakistan, find people who only talk in English. Or go to America, go to England. Don't go to France, they don't talk in English. The more you speak, it's a language, and language only comes when we speak. So language skills are to be learned. Don't join IELTS schools, they don't teach English. Please. Don't go to these academies, they don't teach English. Listen to English news, watch movies, and talk to people. Even if your accent is bad, doesn't matter, because Japanese also have a very bad accent, but they speak English. So don't worry. Just keep on speaking.
Muzammil Salahuddin is saying, in quick conversation, I know names and numbers, mostly which should have been remembered. Any tips to practice?
Yeah, I told you associate and focus and repeat, repetition, association. At least 2 times, take the name of that person 2 times in your communication, in your conversation. You will remember, or associate with some characteristic in the environment, with the context, associate. you will remember. Things need to come with practice.
I guess that's about it.
Thank you very much. So nice of you. I hope you enjoyed this session.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to seeing you again in another session. Thank you very much. Thank you.